many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
What if the biggest royal illusion of the decade didn't come from the palace, but from Meghan Markle herself? Because for years, one woman, Samantha Markle, kept whispering a truth the world refused to hear.
I'm going to quote Tom Bauer by saying, he said, look, we all laughed at Samantha and she was right, and everything she said has come true.
For years, the world was told a simple story. Meghan Markle was born on August 4th, 1981. The date appeared everywhere. Official biographies, press releases, royal profiles repeated so often it became fact by repetition alone. No one questioned it. No one needed to until Samantha Markle did. Questioned it all, and in doing so may have solved the biggest royal puzzle in decades. Because if Meghan Markle's real age is not what the world was told, if it was quietly adjusted years before she ever met Prince Harry, then the entire timeline that followed begins to shift. Careers, milestones, even motherhood itself. For a long time, the story felt sealed, wrapped neatly in glossy photos and polished interviews. The kind of biography that feels too clean to argue with. Dates locked in, smiles fixed, narratives rehearsed until they sounded natural. People accepted it because there was no reason not to. Why would anyone lie about something as simple as a birth year? But families remember things differently than publicists do. And siblings especially don't forget details that shaped an entire childhood. That's where the quiet tension began. Not on a stage, not in a palace, but in conversations that didn't make sense anymore. Dates that slid when spoken aloud. Ages that didn't match the memories attached to them. At first it was just confusion. Then it became discomfort. And then it became something that refused to stay buried.
Prepared to testify for Samantha against Meghan? Is that correct?
Absolutely. To be honest with you, I love both my daughters. I'm not happy with what one of my daughters is doing. And I don't know what caused her to do this. We've had this conversation before. She's telling lies.
For Thomas Markle, there wasn't a single explosive moment where everything collapsed. It was slower than that, more unsettling. He began noticing small inconsistencies. Meghan's public timeline, when she graduated, when she entered certain spaces, how old she was during key events, didn't line up with the daughter he remembered raising. These weren't fuzzy recollections. They were life markers, the kind parents carry without effort. At first, it felt strange, then persistent, then impossible to ignore. Thomas wasn't trying to expose anything. He was trying to understand how two versions of the same life could exist at once. The more he listened to interviews and read official biographies, the more he felt the dates drifting away from what he knew. This is the moment where doubt enters the story. Not loudly, but firmly. Because numbers don't argue, they either add up or they don't. And somewhere between memory and mathematics, Thomas realized something critical. If the starting point was wrong, then everything that followed would be off by years. That realization didn't accuse anyone yet. It simply opened a door, and behind that door was a printed page from 1997, waiting quietly for someone to turn to it. That page didn't scream, it didn't accuse, it just sat there, patient and unchanging. March 1997, a regular issue of 17 magazine, glossy, forgettable, the kind of thing teenagers flipped through without thinking twice. No one could have guessed it would one day become a problem. On page 90, buried among names and faces chasing small dreams, one line quietly existed. Meghan Markle, age 21, Los Angeles. No bold font, no warning, just ink, permanent and indifferent. And when someone finally stopped and actually did the math, everything tilted sideways. If the world's version were true, if August 4th, 1981 were real, Meghan would have been 15 years old in 1997, not 21, not even close. 6 years isn't a typo. It isn't a misunderstanding. It's a completely different life stage, a different decade, a different story. What makes that line heavier is its timing. This wasn't printed after fame. This wasn't edited once royal titles entered the picture. There was no reason to manipulate anything back then. No incentive, no pressure, just a fact printed long before anyone cared who Meghan Markle would become. And that's why it lingers. Because old records don't bend to modern narratives. You can rewrite a biography, you can polish interviews, but archived paper doesn't flinch. And once you see that line, once you really absorb it, the question doesn't leave. Why would a 15-year-old be listed as 21? And if she truly was 21, then what else has been shifted to protect that version? That's where the timelines begin to split cleanly in two. One version, repeated endlessly, places Meghan's birth in 1981. According to that, she's comfortably in her mid-40s now. It's the version defended, corrected, and enforced. The other version, the one whispered by documents and family memory, places her birth somewhere around 1975 or 1976. 1976. That difference doesn't just age her up. It reframes everything. It changes how long it took to break into Hollywood. It changes how youth was presented and sold. It changes how ambition looks when viewed honestly instead of cosmetically. And more than anything, it changes how the most sensitive chapter of all should be understood. Because when pregnancy enters the picture, image stops mattering. Bodies don't follow branding. Medicine doesn't care about reputation. That's why the story surrounding Archie's birth refuses to settle. Publicly, it was presented like a dream, soft lighting, calm energy, a serene mother floating through the experience and returning home hours later as if nothing taxing had happened at all. It sounded beautiful, it sounded controlled, it sounded curated. But for anyone who understands childbirth, especially within elite private hospitals, the story immediately feels strained. The details don't line up. 2 epidurals are mentioned casually, as if they're minor. They're not. Epidurals require careful administration and extended monitoring. Sensation doesn't just snap back. Movement isn't instant. Hospitals don't rush mothers out the door after anesthesia, especially not high-profile patients. And then there's the clock. The Portland hospital to Frogmore Cottage isn't a quick stroll. It's roughly an hour drive. That alone erases half the time claimed. What's left simply doesn't exist in real medical practice. Delivery, recovery, stabilization, discharge, travel, all compressed into a window that medicine does not allow. This is where age becomes unavoidable again. Pregnancy over 35 is clinically classified as high risk. That classification comes with rules, extra caution, and extended observation. If Meghan was older than publicly stated, the protocols would have been even stricter. Then comes the mention of preeclampsia, a condition that turns pregnancy into a medical emergency. Treatment requires constant monitoring, magnesium sulfate, blood pressure control, and absolutely no rushing home for comfort, no exceptions. Not for royalty, not for anyone. And yet the public story skips over all of that. It smooths it out. It romanticizes what should have been carefully managed. That disconnect is where everything cracks. Because when stories collide with medical reality, reality always wins. By this point, the pattern becomes clear. A sister raising questions that never change. A father recalling dates that refuse to move. A magazine listing an age that contradicts everything else. 2 timelines running side by side. A birth story that cannot survive basic scrutiny. Each detail on its own could be dismissed. Together, they feel intentional. This was never about vanity alone. It was about control, about managing perception before anyone thought to look closely. But perception only works until the foundation is examined. Ink doesn't fade, records don't forget, bodies don't cooperate with narratives, and once someone tilts the page toward the light, the edits become visible. The story doesn't collapse in flames, it doesn't end with an announcement, it just quietly loses its solidity. And that's the part that lingers, because once you notice where the lines were redrawn, you can never pretend they weren't there.